Hello everybody and welcome along to our continuing coverage of the 2023 Bathurst 12 Hours. The LIQUI MOLY Bathurst 12 Hours is back in its usual spot on the calendar, and we have one final practice, free practice 6, the 60 minutes on the clock. The last opportunity for the teams and drivers to dial in their cars before we go to the shootout for pole position. Shea Adam is down in the pit lane. This is John Hindhaugh in the booth. Richard Krill will be joining me in just a few moments' time. Good morning, Shea.
Good morning, John Hindhaugh. Good morning to a pit lane full of beautiful cars. I'm down at the Mercedes ends of things right now with the Bathurst rookie, Mick Grenier. We were just lamenting the fact that it's still a little bit chilly in the air, a lot better than being at home in Canada. But what do you make of Mount Panorama so far?
Yeah, it's a bit cooler than I expected, but super nice track. Already a lot of fans. Yeah, the track is just mega. It's the first time for me here, but it's like a small Nordschleife, and I would say even better. So enjoying it so far, and teammates are doing a good job. We have a super fast car, I think. So yeah, let's see later this afternoon for quali and then the race tomorrow.
We know the Mercedes is going to be strong, especially out here with the Mamba, once again, with that wonderful livery. Is it going to be harder to beat the other Mercedes or the other cars in your class?
No, I think all the AMG will be strong. 888, you know, they know the place very well. Sun Energy, they are in the Pro class this year, so Kenny still has to do a bit, but they will be quick. I think we have a super fast car and I have really good teammates. Porsche will be strong, Audi is always strong here, so won't be easy, but yeah, I think we have a good chance.
You're one of the crazy people, like John and myself, coming down from Daytona, but you've got a lot of teammates in other cars this weekend as well. Does it feel like a big family?
Yeah, I mean, at AMG, we try to share the car with everyone over the year. I've shared the car with Maro and Lello before. Super easy guy, they know what they're doing, and obviously it's also good for me because they have a lot of experience with the car in Bathurst here, so I can learn a bit from them. And yeah, I just hope that after Daytona that we were a bit disappointed. I hope here we can get hopefully on the top step of the podium, but at least a trophy. Yeah.
Maybe some of Maro's good luck will rub off on you guys. It was much rougher Daytona for you and Lello, as you said. Coming to the mountain, you said it's your first time here. What is the part of the track that is much more different than you'd expected from driving it on a sim?
I think it's skyline. It's just much tighter than expected. So yeah, you get there, it's super tight. We arrived there in 5th gear, so easy over 200 Ks. But it's really nice. I mean, it takes a bit of balls, but that's why we are here. You know, we like the challenge and happy to be here.
Glad you're here, Mick.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shea. Nice and sunny down in pit lane as we roll into the final systems check to count down towards a 3-part qualifying format for the LIQUI MOLY Bathurst 12-hour. A spectacular day here in the central west of New South Wales. Wind still blowing from the southwest, blustery at the moment for those of you watching on the screen. And although it looks spectacular, and it is spectacular, quite chilly outside, and in the shade out the back of the pits, it's jacket weather for sure. If you're an Aussie, that is, John Hindhaugh. But it is a spectacular day at Mount Panorama. There is a massive crowd here. Everyone enjoying it. I walked past the Oracle Red Bull Racing Garage before, getting ready for their run. 1:30 today, folks, if you're here. And those of you watching as well, it will be covered all the way through. Liam Lawson has been round the circuit with Craig Baird to get a few pointers. He's never been here before.
That's why the AMG safety car was out with Beardo, was it?
To be fair, Beardo would take any excuse to go and cut some laps of this place, but
Shea was out in an RS6 this morning.
It's all the good gigs, our pit lane team. Do you remember Chad drove a GT4 Merc here, which is ambitiously brave from our friends at Mercedes AMG, but you put it back. So that car will run at 1:30. They're 25 deep at the back of the garage. The best thing is they ran the car up as I was walking up here, gave it the, you know, the big revs at the end before they shut it down, and everyone burst into applause, which I thought was just sensational. Very polite crowd here at the LIQUI MOLY Bathurst 12 Hour. So final practice session, it's 60 minutes. It's the final systems check before qualifying, and a 3-part qualifying session, which I'll break down for you over the course of this session, because it does take some explaining.
I've got 2 large legal pads here and different coloured pens to work that one out. People joining us all the time, Crazy. Let's just summarise the the storylines early on this week. It was the big news that Valentino Rossi topped one of the time sessions. That has hit the newspapers and the outlets here in Australia and globally. And rightly so. The
back page of the Herald Sun.
I saw that
this morning on the Daily Telegraph as well in Sydney and in Melbourne, which is very cool. Well, to summarise, today has been the first proper form guide we've had so far, and it was Matt Campbell who did the 2:02.75 on the 17th of 19 laps for the number 912 Manthey EMA Porsche this morning. Ended up 700ths quicker than the Sun Energy One Racing Mercedes AMG. That time was set by Jules Gounon. And in third, Richie Stanaway did the time in car 99. Just a 10th off. We'll go to Shane in a second, but I spoke to the team at 888 and they said very relaxed Richie, just very comfortable in the car and working his way into it. But he was one of 3 drivers to get into the 202s in practice 5 early this morning.
There's just a bit of drama in the pit lane, guys, for that Black Mamba car that we've been talking about. The yellow and green snake livery car, number 999. We spoke to Mick Grenier a couple of moments ago. Well, the car came into the pit lane, Mauro Angle on an angle, because Mauro Angle on an angle.
Like
you see what I did there? Because the crew said that he should practice coming in at a weird angle so that the crew could practice doing pit stops. They did. And the car had the left side tires taken off and replaced, and the right side tires taken off and not replaced, and the car was dropped off the air jacks. So I would be worried about some floor damage. There was a very loud thud that reverberated down the concrete stalls of the pit lane. I'm only one away from it, but still, it was not a great moment. And the team then yelling at one another because the tire guy who was supposed to bring the tires back out for the right-hand side didn't hustle, and so there was a bit of miscommunication. That's drama.
It's a bit. Drama as well yesterday with a truncated final session. Keith Kozulgi in the Mark Cars 2 Mustang, the 52 blue car. Brake issue at the absolute worst. I mean, to be honest, anywhere around here that you have brake failure, even coming in the pit lane would be pretty scary. But he was at the entrance to the chase, hit the wall pretty hard. The car flipped over. Car did its job. All the safety design on that.
I've spoken to Mark Cars about that, and there'll be more a little bit later on today. But first and foremost, we should reiterate that Keith is okay. Was taken to local hospital just for some checks, precautionary more than anything, but there was no damage following that incident to him. And Mark Cars did say that quite emphatically the car did its job. All of the safety systems stood up from what was a very heavy impact. Running into the chase, well over 250 k's an hour, and brake issues, we think, on the left front. They're yet to confirm the full cause at this point. They're still trolling through all the data. But it launched off the inside curb at the chase, must have flown 20 metres, landed halfway across the gravel trap, and when the car's in the air, it ain't slowing down, and it bounced across and whacked the tyre bundle right in front of Ridge's Mount Panorama Resort. So it was a very, very sudden stop. So that was...
out. That car's out.
Yes, yeah, they have officially withdrawn, which leaves us at 25. There's been a few other little niggling problems, and if you're not up to speed with it, there was a car swap. The KTM Crossbow GT2 has withdrawn from the race, but fortunately, Melbourne Performance Centre had a spare on hand.
As you do.
And Troy Russell's done a nice deal and leased that car to the Vantage Racing and Motorsport squad, so Dave Crampton and his boys will take over. Unfortunately, Jaden Ojeda misses out on a drive just with the driver seating requirements to run in the silver class for GT3 cars. So Jaden will put the headset on and work as a driver coach for the remainder of the weekend and just work with the 3 drivers in that car now, Glenn Wood, Trent Harrison and David Crampton, but they're in an Audi R8. Imagine getting the keys to an R8 on the Friday evening of your first ever race in the car, having never driven it. I told them this morning they were given the steering wheel and they looked and went, what do the buttons do? Like, we just don't know. This is the kind of stuff you sort out before you get to Mount Panorama.
Well, I was talking to Nicky Katzberg about that, because he hasn't driven the car that he's in this weekend. And he was literally reading the manual for the car on the flight round from Daytona. And it's a 30-odd page manual for the operating systems, much like when the guys jumped into the current Porsche, the GT3R. There's a 32-page manual for the steering wheel.
Yeah.
And in the new Porsche, talking to the guys at Daytona last weekend, this is very much like the 919 prototype. There are 14 different adjustment buttons or thumb wheels and 6 different sets of paddles on that steering wheel.
Some of us struggle to get out of bed in the morning.
We have a very, very, very good driver in here who's also rather annoyingly very good at commentary, who just wrinkled his nose when I said 14 adjustments and 6 sets of paddles. Oh, I mean, just a bit different from what you were driving. Garth Tander, welcome to the broadcast.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I mean, actually, you're talking about the guys that swapped from the KTM to the Audi. Trent Harrison, David Crampton, and
Glenn Wood.
And I was just in that garage, and obviously I've done a few miles in the Audi over time, and they said, how do we use this thing? So just ran through some of the systems and how to drive it. And for Glenn, who's going to qualify the car, he's done 1 lap in the car yesterday afternoon and won't drive it again before qualifying. Because he has the most GT3 experience out of those cars. Trent had never driven a GT3 car, nor had David Crampton. So talk about deep end. Go to Bathurst and drive a car that you've never driven before and go straight to qualifying. So a big challenge for those guys, but they've got the right mindset. It's a long race tomorrow and they just want to finish.
Welcome to the broadcast, Garth, and congratulations on a great call with Trilsey last year. I thoroughly enjoyed it. My first time working with you, and delighted to be back here. Thank you for jumping in on Midweek Motorsport a couple of weeks ago as well. I think the comment that you made that has stuck out to everybody is about what this race will look like in the last 2 hours, because Pro and Am and Silver disappear for all intents and purposes because those classes aren't really going to matter. We're just going to have a no-nonsense, head-down, mindless boogie GT race to the end.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the way, if particularly the Silver and some of the Pro-Am entries, if they strategise their way correctly throughout the first 8 hours of the race to get the bronze driver or the silver drivers driving time done, and they're still on the lead lap and they still have reasonable track position, then they just become a pro car effectively. And then the pro field swells from, what have we got, 8 full pro cars? That probably turned into 12. So, I mean, you think about the cars that are in that situation, the Sun Energy car. I mean, yes, they're entered as a full pro, but Kenny is not a pro driver, and he'll put his hand up and say that. Chaz Mostert, if they're still in the game, that Audi will be fast. We know Chaz is fast around here. There's a heap of others, the 777 Audi, the 888 car. There's heaps of them. So
Done.
Yeah, so then, you know, everyone's still saying, oh, there's only 8 pro cars. But if everyone does it right throughout the first sort of 7-8 hours of the race, that can swell to 10, 12 really strong contenders at the end of the race.
And there's even some silvers that in the silver class that could pop up. But Dylan O'Keefe this morning did a low 4 in their car, in the New Zealand car. So popped right up into the top 5. Aaron Cameron has been very quick into the Valmont Racing AMG as well. He'll get up to speed very quickly. I was talking to his teammates Marcel Zalura and Sergio Perez, not the F1 driver, earlier this morning, and they said it's really irritating because he jumped into that car and in his second lap he did a 5.5, which is quicker than any of us have ever been around here. He's never driven the car. He's never been at the track in a GT3 car, and he went bang straight onto it.
That's the benefit of being young and not having to worry about paying for it.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Is that brave or just having no imagination? I don't know.
Probably not understanding how much everything costs on the car. If you're blind ignorance, sometimes you don't have to worry about it too much.
So just to bring up to speed, Matt Campbell tops this session as he did this morning, and a 2:02.77 is good going on his 4th lap. I wonder, GT, if they're just having a quick look at qualifying simulations now, conditions will be different to the shootout later this evening, but probably quite relative to what we're going to see in the 2-part qualifying session in a couple of hours.
Yeah, I think the big chat that up and down pit lane so far has been the new compound tyre, the DHF Pirelli, and how to bring that tyre in, how to get it up to operating temperature and get it working so that you're getting the most out of the tyre in qualifying trim. A lot of people are saying they're actually struggling to get the tyre up to temperature. You mentioned Matt Campbell, it was on his 4th push lap that he actually set that 2:02.7. So we're used to, you know, doing it on lap 2, lap 3, and by lap 4 the tyre's gone past its best. So I feel like the teams are still understanding how to get the tyre into the operating window. I know this morning in this morning's practice session, it was lap 5 or 6 that we were seeing the tyre come into its performance window. So you fast forward to tomorrow morning at 5:45 in the morning, it's going to be very, very cool. It'll obviously still be dark. The tyre's going to take a while to get right. So that's going to be a real theme over the course of qualifying this afternoon and then into the race tomorrow morning.
James Golding getting his first serious run today behind the wheel of the 55 car. That's the Pro-Am entered class entry from Fuchs Motorsport. Brad Schumacher's team working with Premier Racing, the supercar squad that'll run a couple of Chevy Camaros. Golding floated into the supercars midway through last year's championship and did a really solid job in the second half of the year. He's been racing S5000 open wheelers. He'll drive anything that GRM has to offer in their stable of racing cars and drive it very, very well. This is his first proper crack at GT3 competition, but as you'd expect for someone like James, right into his work at a 2:04.3 on what's essentially his first push lap as well.
Going to start an onboard lap with car 46, which is just starting its lap at the moment. And rather than Crailsey and I talking around watching on the big screens or further afield, we'll hand it off to the man who's doing more laps around here than probably half the field at the moment. GT, tell us what's going on here.
Well, the first time I saw the BMW yesterday in the last practice session, I was up the top of the mountain at Reed Park, and I was really taken by how much downforce this car has. And talking to some of the other teams, they all say, yes, the BMW has huge downforce. So I'd expect that this car, from this point on, leaving the cutting to Skyline, we'll see in qualifying will be one of the strongest, if not the strongest. You could hear there through what we call the tree, and now the drop down into Reed Park. I was standing right there on the outside, and yeah, he didn't feather all the way out. So I think in qualifying, that car will be flat through the grey and flat, almost flat here at McPhillamy, wow, which is massive, massive. The big, big downforce in this car. So we've gone red flag now, so you could, yeah, Augusto Farfus backs out of it.
And it was just at the exit of Rock Skyline now. We've got a car sideways, and it's the Sin.
That's not where you want to park.
It's really not.
Not even if you're sightseeing, actually.
No, not even on a sightseeing day, let alone when guys are out there trying to do 202s in GT3 cars. So
it's Shane Woodman behind the wheel of the 66 car. The LS, they did an engine change yesterday afternoon, evening in that car. The engine block, incidentally, it's got Corvette Racing head rocker covers on the top of it, which I thought was an interesting little touch. But they put another LS Chev in that car last night, but it stopped. That's question mark is, has it stopped under its own steam, or has there been a more sudden impact?
Yeah, has
massive,
it bounced?
Massive crowd at the top of the monochrome Brox Skyline.
The wind yesterday, and it's getting up, wasn't as windy as this morning. The wind was causing some troubles at the top of the mountain, Garth, as well, because you talk about all that downforce, but when the wind's behind the car, that's actually peeling downforce off.
Less downforce, so definitely more downforce driving into a headwind, less downforce with a tailwind. So that wind direction that we have at the moment is a headwind up Mountain Straight, but conversely that turns into a tailwind at the exit of McPhillamy and then into Skyline, and that's the exact wrong wind direction that you want.
Oh, wheel off.
Never a good day when a part of your car's doing a different lap time from the rest of it.
The wheel's winning at the moment.
Yeah, it's great.
Do you know, I wonder if that wheel has come from the Sin.
And it's still rolling.
We saw that here at the 1000 last year. Yeah. Car lost its wheel at the top of the hill and it continued to roll, and it ended up about 700 metres down Conrod Straight.
Firm. That is a Sin wheel making its bid for freedom. Northamptonshire finest sports car manufacturer, Wellingborough Road, Northampton. Northamptonshire, sorry.
So near Silverstone?
Yeah, not too far. Not too far. So when you've been to my place, I used to work down in Wellingborough for Ray Mallock, and they built the S7R, designed and built the S7R. So sports car and supercar production not unknown in Wellingborough, Northamptonshire.
So look inside Motorsport Australia Race Control. James Taylor pushing the buttons in the middle. He's the race director and has been for some time for this race. 2015, I think, was JT's first year. Craig Baird looking after driving standards. It's all the same crew that attend all of the Repco Supercars Championship rounds, including the stewards that are here this weekend. We took John up to meet the stewards yesterday. He felt somewhat guilty, as one does.
You can't help it, can you?
You go in there feeling meek, and all you're doing was going to say hello.
I'm sorry, sir.
Shuffled in, you know.
You feel like you're going to the headmaster's office every time you head up there.
But they've got it well covered with all the technology to oversee what's going on. So that'll be a big part of the race tomorrow, how it's managed over the duration. Matt Campbell quickest, so we're under red flag. Danny Juncadella popped up to second. Just before that happened with a good lap for the Craft Bamboo AMG. That's the quickest they've gone today with a 2:03.5. Still 7/10 off Matt Campbell, but a lot of people still getting into their work. Chris Haase in the 74 Audi next. You've worked with Chris in your time driving for Audi Sport here. Those Germans that they parachute in every year are unbelievable, aren't they? They get in 2 or 3 laps, bang, right on the money.
Oh, all the pro drivers that basically live in GT3 cars at all the cool racetracks around the world. I mean, what is it? There was 10, 12 drivers that have come straight from Daytona last week.
I think we're up to 14 with the last count.
So, you know, they all race at Nordschleife, they all do Spa, they all do GT World Challenge. They live in these cars. And we sort of thought early days at the 12 hour that having local track experience would be more of an advantage than having an understanding of the limit of the race car. But we learnt very, very early that whenever the pro guys come down here to Bathurst, they know the limit of the car. They do the simulations, they understand what the corner speed is, so they know where they should be putting the car. I got really deflated when Fred Vervish came down here, and on his second lap, he was in the 3s. And I was like, far out, man.
You spent 15 years trying to do a 3 at this place, and he rolls in.
And I helped him a lot when we did the track walk. I stopped helping him after that.
There is a point, though, there has to be, GT, doesn't there, where the experience curves intersect, because the guys who know, you guys who know this track very, very well, with more time behind the wheel of these very sophisticated GT3 cars. People look at GT3 cars and think that it's a road car with a cage in it. It may have started something similar to that, but those days are long, long gone. And that experience, those two experience curves, like the worm in cricket, they are going to intersect at some point.
Yeah, they do. And I think, it's also now that with the factory guys that are coming down here, they're down here for year 3, year 4, year 5 now. So it's not like they need to learn the track. They have the experience at the circuit. So in reality, the Australian drivers, and particularly the supercar guys, probably don't have the current mileage in GT3 cars, but obviously they know the circuit very, very well. So generally by the time the race comes around, the supercar drivers are fully up to speed with what the GT3 guys or the pro drivers are, or the factory drivers are up to. But they just get up to the limit so quickly, so quickly. That's what's so impressive. Like, guys come down here for the very first time, lap 3, lap 4, lap 5, they're on it. They know the limit and they're on it. They know where to put the car, and they're moving forward with car development.
And it's not as if it's somewhere like Spa where you've got acres and acres of supermarket car park runoff.
It's the commitment, especially across the top. It's just they come here and go, oh yeah, walls are pretty close, and then they stop thinking about that.
Yeah.
And then they just go, righto, let's go.
That's like golfers. When I've interviewed golfers in the past, and you say, all right, we're down on the 14th or whatever, tricky second shot here because there's a bunker just where you want to be. The golfer says, I don't see the bunker.
Yeah, no.
It's like, it's good cricketers. They don't look to see where the fielders are. They look to see where they aren't.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. I admire that focus. Shea Adam is down in the pit lane enjoying the sunshine.
You mentioned Frederick Vervish, so I had to come find him for a chat because we haven't talked to you guys yet, and it's been a very strong showing so far from your less strong driver, I'll say, Brad Schumacher. He is the weak link of the team, and no disrespect to him because he put down a super fast lap yesterday. I'm expecting it'll be him and you for qualifying today.
Actually, yeah, we're still checking the exact regulation because I think, maybe it will be Jimmy, but we don't know yet exactly. But yeah, definitely Brad did an amazing job, and he made the headlines together with Rossi, which I know well as well, and he did also a very good job. So no, so far everything going well, and yeah, it will be a long race. So.
You know how this race works. You know how it works in an Audi. Coming back to the mountain, does it feel familiar again?
Yeah, definitely. It has been 3 years, but yeah, the first laps were there again. So yeah, I think it's a great challenge. It's like a mini Nordschleife, and yeah, you have to fight a little bit against yourself to go quicker every time. But it's great. It's great. So great feeling.
You have so many friends here, not only with Audi, but driving for other manufacturers this weekend. Does it feel like a little reunion, everybody getting back together?
Yeah, it feels like that. It feels like 2020 again, like pre-Corona. So I hope it just continues like that, and that would be great for everybody, but that's definitely the feeling.
Good luck this weekend.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Shea, before you let Fred go, just ask him what he felt of Garth Tander as a co-driver.
Well, we have Garth Tander in the booth. So what did you think of Garth when he was a co-driver?
That guy is on another level. It's amazing. I'm surprised he's not driving, but yeah, we just had a chat before the first pre-practice, and yeah, he made his decision to do commenting. So yeah, but it would have been nice if he would drive. Yeah, definitely.
Maybe one day, Garth. Maybe one day.
He knew you were listening, I think there. Nice words from...
That's not how he spoke to me when we were talking before.
Funny about that. He puts the Audi PR cap on and does the right thing by the brand. Very nice. Thank you, Shay. A couple of minutes away from a restart, we understand, and the recovery teams have done the job to a damaged Sin sports car at the top of Mount Panorama, so we're not far away. Hey, before we go back to Green, I can talk a little bit of shop with this guy. We haven't heard much from him since he won his 5th Bathurst 1000 last October, so congrats by that.
It's just greedy, by the way, that. You've got to let somebody else have
You're
it.
the only one catching sort of Lounsey and that sort of level at the moment, and you're tied with your mate Richo as well.
Yeah, I've had a few years now.
Yeah.
Richo and I have been battling. He kept edging away, but I've got a couple back on him now.
It's very good. But when we announced that you'd be part of the broadcast team, the international Twitter lit up, because what the international audience remember you for isn't necessarily the 1000. 21 years ago, you won the 24-hour here in a Monaro. I dead set, there were 15 or 20 tweets going, you've got to talk to Garth about the Monaro.
He was very young then.
I was very young.
Just in his late teens.
He'd only won one Bathurst by that point too, by the way.
Didn't know you could do the race in diapers. It's impressive, Garth.
That's a whole different conversation.
Very nice. Thank you.
Whole different conversation, that one.
21 years, though, in all seriousness. It's incredible that it was that long ago, and it's incredible you're still going, but that was a pretty special little area, wasn't those 2 years?
Oh, the 24-hour race around here was epic. It was really cool. I'd never done a 24-hour race prior to the one we did here in the Monaro, and that car, when we brought it here, had only done probably 500 Ks of pre-event testing. It wasn't actually built to be ready for that race. We fast-tracked the build to get it ready in time for the 24-hour race at the end of 2002. So it was very cool. Got to share the car with some great co-drivers, Steve Richards, Cam McConville and Nathan Pretty. And in that first year, we had a great battle with David Brabham. Alan Grice was racing there in a Porsche, Darren Palmer. They were competing in a Porsche from a team from the UK, Certec Motorsport. There was a Mosler in that race.
Yeah,
that was Martin Short. We had him on the Twitter earlier on. He's sitting watching and listening to the Formula Ford race because that's what he does.
Yeah, that was a cool car, and that's still Mosler's getting around today. So it was a really cool race, very, very different type of GT race to what we have now with GT3 regulations. But driving around here at night time with proper big headlights on the car and class cars. I mean, there was some Mitsubishi Mirages in that race, tiny little things, and we had a bit of a joke in the Monaro garage that we'd say, we've got to
race control to all
because we have a
teams,
Mitsubishi Mirage stuck in the brake duct.
Yeah.
They were so small, and our car felt so big. So, it was good fun.
How fast would that car have gone without the... I know you've been asked this a lot.
Yes.
Without the restrictions that you were... To bring it back to that, it was sort of that Porsche level. How quickly would those... sub-twos around here?
No, so everyone thought... I mean, I think the fastest lap we did in that car here back then was a 2:13 or something like that, and... back in the day then, I think supercars were only doing 8s and 9s. So I reckon if we really hustled, we might have got down to an 8 or 9.
Yeah, okay.
Everyone seems to think it was this supersonic thing that was going to go sub 2 minutes, but there was no chance. It was designed to go up the mountain, so it had a huge amount of torque. It got up the hill really, really quickly, but it wasn't that fast down the mountain. So, and it didn't have big downforce. It was effectively a supercar with a 7-litre engine in it that was heavier.
Yeah.
It was a 1,550, 1,600 kilo race car, so it was a heavy, heavy car.
They were the most laconic sort of car to watch, especially at a tight circuit. I saw them at Oran Park. I saw them at Mallala, my home track, and they looked just, they were the same size as a supercar, but just with the low grumble rather than the more howl of a supercar.
It was hard. Like, we were sleeping in motorhomes here at the track, and because it had such a unique engine note and that deep rumble, you had about 2 minutes 15 to fall asleep each lap, because you'd hear the car go past and go, yep, we're still in the race. And then you'd hopefully get to sleep in that 2 minutes that would go past again. Yep, we're still in the race. So it was actually quite challenging to get some sleep listening for your own car while you're out there.
And he made his career by coming back the next year, finished second, but didn't fence Brock's car, so Brock could win and get his 10th.
That was just simply making sure I had a continuation
of your career. Exactly.
Take Peter Brock out of the lead of the race at Bathurst, and you're pretty much not going to have a career going forwards.
We're back to green. Fortunately, 32 minutes on the clock, and the recovery team have done their work at the top of the mountain. I hope the Daytona Sports Car team can get that car patched up and fixed, and there is a spare, I noticed, sitting out the back of the paddock, so they can go and pilfer some bits off that. They've learned. They've been here before, that team, with the Daytona Coupe and a Dodge Viper GT3 car as well. So hopefully they can get that patched up. In the meantime, we'll get some work underway with drivers behind the wheel of the top flight GT3 cars at the front of the field.
The great thing about modern technology is we have eyes and ears everywhere. So We've got some photographs coming in for the top of the mountain at RSL Studio. Use the hashtag B12HR, B12HR. Thanks to Fiona, who sent through a picture of the skid marks from the Sin, which looks like, as it's going across the top, it might have gone a bit wide, caught the curb, and then speared hard left into the wall at Skyline. Bounced up in the air, apparently, and the momentum took it down to where we could see it came to an halt. Right front and left rear wheels missing from the Sin when it came back in. We think we saw one disappearing down to the BMW elbow. That is a sketchy place there, Garth, to have an incident like that, considering the speeds there now. And sort of cast your mind back to when there wasn't a wall there. He'd have been back in the paddock by now.
Used to be a chicken wire fence up there.
Yeah.
It'd still be going, coming down the mountain. But yeah, I did notice when it was on the back of the flat tray, there was some damage to the Sin, so it's obviously made contact with the wall. So that's the chicken and egg thing. Did the wheel come off to cause the moment, or did we have the moment and then the wheel came off? So we might not never know until we find out from the team afterwards. That sounds like a Porsche on board, doesn't it?
Very distinctive sounds. Mostly of the gearbox rather than the... That is the 4-litre flat six. Now out to just under 4.2 for the replacement car for this venerable machine. The Manthey Racing. Manthey Racing forgotten more about endurance sports car racing than most people will ever know, particularly at places like the Nürburgring Nordschleife, and recognised by Porsche factory over the years that they've taken a controlling interest in Manthey. Olaf still consulting for them.
There's a MR edition, brand new 992 sitting in Porsche's Centre Sydney that I got some photos sent of the other day, which looks particularly tasty. We made jokes all week about the fact that some people in this race have an address of Conrod Straight or Boundary Road if you won, and Grant Denyer lives over the other side of the hill. But you know you've got endurance racing credentials when your address is #1 for Nürburgring. Yeah. For Manthey Racing. They've partnered up with EMA Motorsport, who run a range of cars. They're competing in Porsche Carrera Cup Australia. They had a pretty good season last year with Davey Russell and got into the top 3, which was a really good result. It's a collaboration between the two squads. They've worked really hard to pull this together. It's a cracking team, led by Matt Campbell, who's won here before, of course, but his good friend Mathieu Jaminet, who's been here before, and Thomas Pointing. They've all got experience. They know and understand this car at Bathurst because they've been here so many times with it. The Porsche's so good too over a distance, and in a race which we expect to be very, very rapid and we hope relatively trouble-free, fuel economy is going to play a role, and the Porsches traditionally in this race have always been really good on fuel numbers.
That sounds odd, doesn't it, talking about Porsche as an economic race?
It's all relative.
It's a relative term.
Yes.
It is a relative term.
To a 5.2-litre V10, absolutely it's economical.
The engineers at Porsche down through the years, to keep that rear engine car competitive, particularly the suspension and chassis engine, it shouldn't work. It shouldn't work, but it does, and they've kept it current. The new version, they've gone out with that 4.2 engine. The engine's tilted up at about 15 degrees so they get a little bit more downforce out of the diffuser at the back, but it's still gearbox engine, like the Le Mans car where they swap those round the other way. And we'll see the new 992 body shape here at the LIQUI MOLY Bathurst 12 Hours next year. It is a thing of beauty. It really is. And I have to say, though, I do like the 991 Gen 2 body shape. It is one of my favourite of the 8 iterations of Porsche 911 that will celebrate its 60th birthday, of course, this year. Big year for Porsche.
Big year for Porsche in Australia as well. Massive field of Carrera Cup, Sprint Challenge looking strong. There'll be, I think, 65 competitors racing in national one-make Porsche racing in Australia this year. So pretty remarkable what they've established in the junior program. Actually, should mention, g'day to Harry Jones. I think he's watching reigning Carrera Cup Australia champion. He's been racing in the Middle East in Porsche Sprint Challenge Middle East with Lechner Racing ahead of a Super Cup campaign this year, and he won the first round last weekend and going well again this weekend. So g'day to Haz. He's another bright young talent from this part of the world.
I think between you and I, Quilty, we probably commentate on more Porsches racing in other places around the world, but we're doing everything down here with the North American Carrera Cup, as it is now, has been for a couple of seasons, and Carrera Cup Asia as well. They're covered between us.
I'm going to go to Rensport at Laguna this year. It needs to happen. Some good laps, gents. Maro Engel, as you would expect, with lots of experience here, has just dropped into the twos for the first time in the Group of M car, the yellow Mamba with a big snake on the front. The man Filter's car just 0.1 behind the time Matt Campbell did earlier on. Garth, I love the fact that every time we come here, you know, we talk about BOP and the relative strengths and weaknesses. This place, though, there's something in it for everyone, isn't there? And we always end up with this amazing spread of manufacturers, all split by half a tenth.
Yeah, but it's how they achieve their lap time is completely different. I mean, we talk about the BMW, has big torque, so it punches off the corner really nicely, has big downforce, but probably doesn't have the top end speed. Porsche is probably, I feel like, here at Bathurst, the best all-round package. And we saw that the year Matt Campbell and was so fast and won the race. And the car's clearly fast again here this year. The Audi, which I've done a lot of racing with here, it is super fast across the top of the mountain, but does not have straight line speed. So it's a high downforce car, and you can't get enough drag off the car to make it fast down Conrod and up Mountain Straight. So Christopher Haas, who's just come into pit lane, has set the fastest middle sector across the top of the mountain, but is still 7/10 of a second off the ultimate lap speed. So with BOP racing within GT3, you can achieve the same lap time, but how you make the lap time is very different car to car. That makes it really interesting, but I do know from experience in the Audi, it is hard work racing here. You go fast, but the raceability of the car is a challenge.
And does that affect then, when you're sitting down on race morning, does that affect how you plan out your strategy, Garth?
Well, it does. You sit down after qualifying effectively and see, well, where do we sit in the pecking order? Are we in the first 5 cars? And then you might dictate you'll run strategy A. If you're in the sort of back half of the 10, you might run strategy B. If you're 20th, you'll run a very alternative strategy, because you've got to make your lap time in a different way. So for the Audi, for example, that makes fast lap time but probably isn't that raceable, you need clear air for the majority of the race. So you're not actually racing wheel to wheel with the other car. You need to keep finding yourself clear air, because that's the fastest way for your car to do the race.
We saw that at the end of last year's race when Kelvin van der Linde was angry for being a lap down, but was running on his own, but was more than half a second a lap quicker than anybody else on the planet at that point. But to your point, he was in clear air, doing his own thing.
Yeah, that makes a big difference. So that, to John's point about how do you go with your strategy, you really need to maximise your strengths and minimise your ability to be exposed to your weaknesses. So for the Porsche, for example, they have very few weaknesses here. Strong drivers, strong car, great reliability. They know that they can hammer the car for 12 hours and it's just going to effectively be a warm-up for it. So they can be very flexible with how they go about it with their strategy. And Mercedes probably in the same boat. But for the Audi and maybe for the BMW, they have to potentially look at how they do their race in a different way to maximise their strengths.
And we're yet to find out what that BMW is like around here in traffic, in battle. We've never seen it before. It's the first time that car's run here. The M6, the previous car, the GT3, was always handy over one lap. Chaz Mostert put it in pole. He's one of only 2 drivers to do a 1 in qualifying at this place. So it was a huge lap, but it always struggled in race conditions.
Yeah, that's the same. It had that different raceability, and that's what GT3 racing is. Every track they go to, different cars will have different strengths and weaknesses, and over the course of a 12-month championship, it evens itself out. And it's just that it turns out that here at Bathurst, you need specific things. You need to have reasonable downforce, but you need good punch off Forest Elbow, you need good punch off Turn 1, and you need a car that's stable on the brakes. And that's sort of where the Porsche has fitted in. It's got probably enough of those strengths to make it the best all-round car here at the mountain.
Just to put a full stop on that point, and John will remember, Lawrence Vanthoor, when he was still an Audi driver, came here one year, and the BOP wasn't quite right, and they were way down on straight line speed. He was pretty fired up about it, quite outspoken. I've never seen a car driven harder across the top. And there was a photo of him with absolutely every little bit of lock that thing had, with 2.5 wheels out sideways over the dirt at Infinity Park. Absolutely pinned flat. He was driving the thing so hard.
2016, I remember, I was in the Audi as well, and we had to drive the car so hard just to make a lap time, because we had no straight line the way the BOP was that year.
That sounds like the Lawrence we know and love. And hi, Lawrence, because I'm sure you're watching still in Florida at this point in time. But just to give you guys a little bit of something juicy to keep an eye on, the 888, I was waiting for a chat with Brock Feeney. He saw me standing here with the microphone, did not get out of the car. No, I'm kidding. And they put sticker Pirellis on that car, so they are going to see what they have for the qualifying, which comes up here, well, relatively shortly. They're the first car I've seen go to stickers to do a mock quali run. I've seen a couple other cars go to stickers just to try and get the sheen off the tires so that they'll be scrubbed in. This one, this was legit though.
Yeah, interesting. Good to hear. Keen to see what young Brock can do on a fresh set of Pirellis, actually. He's been really impressive since jumping into these cars. Filled in for Shane van Gisbergen when he was off doing extracurricular activities like World Rally Championship rounds and things like that, and was immediately quick and drove that car here with Prince Jeffrey in the 3-hour race at the Bathurst International last November, and was outstanding for a guy who hasn't got much GT3 experience. So he's a sponge and soaking it all up, as well as having won his first Supercars race at the end of last year. Very handy in a GT3, to the point where they were comfortable at 888 to put him in alongside Shane van Gisbergen and Maxi Goetz, who's one of the best Mercedes pros.
Yeah, Brock was very, very impressive last year. I did a couple of Australian GT Championship races against him, and he was very, very fast and has settled into that car nicely. So yeah, it's interesting what Shay mentioned about they're off to do a quali sim. So they're doing a quali sim now. Some teams taking the shine off the tyre. That's more about tyre prep, because we were talking about how do you bring the tyre in. By taking the shine off the tyre and not using any goodness out of the tyre, it means that when you leave pit lane for proper in qualifying in the next session, you're not using that first half of the lap to take the shine off the tyre. You're getting temperature into the tyre quickly. So there's a couple of schools of thoughts with that. Even though it's a very gentle warming, it is a heat cycle on the tyre, and that starts to cure the tyre and potentially takes away some of the goodness. But then, on the flip side, you're getting the tyre up to temperature more quickly when you use that tyre that has the sheen off it.
Shane, down the pit lane. Oh, no, thought that was Shane. Is that tactically a way that you can work with this minimum tyre pressure as well, Garth?
Yes.
Because down at 20, one or two people are struggling with that. They think that's a bit high, and when the temperatures come up, they're worried about over-pressuring the tyres.
So if you could potentially cure the tyre, and that means the tyre becomes less peaky, what we call, so it doesn't, the tyre temperature and tyre pressure doesn't rise as quickly. So it's potentially preparing a tyre for the heat of the day tomorrow. We're expecting it's going to be 29, 30 degrees tomorrow, much warmer than what we're seeing yesterday and today. So that makes the tyre a more consistent tyre. So they might not be prepping the tyre for qualifying, it more be looking well forward to 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
The other thing to consider is there's 12 sets of brand new Pirellis. There's no used tyres like we see at other rounds for practice, so they're not wobbling around on old rubber. They've got 12 sets of tyres to throw, 48 tyres to throw at the car over the course of the race. So managing that allocation is still key, but it's not like there's a shortage of rubber to use. A little bit of lap time update for you. While we were talking, Maro Engel punched out the quickest lap of the weekend for that car at the 999 at a 2:02.61. So really good lap from the German. And we were talking about the internationals plugging themselves in and going quickly from the outset. So Philip Ellis is behind the wheel of the 77 Craft Bamboo racing car. Remember, he was the last-minute sub to jump in that car for Lucas Auer. Hope he's recovering well from that massive crash at Daytona last weekend. The runner-up in DTM last year was due to race here with Craft Bamboo. They've subbed in Philip Ellis. This is his first serious run. He got a couple of laps yesterday, and on his 4th lap, the car's best is a 2:03.5. His 4th lap was just in a 2:03.9. So straight to work.
He's a Nürburgring specialist. Yes. He's very, very good around the Nürburgring, and I kind of think that mentality, Garth, here will not do him any. Oh, big slide coming out the final corner by the Fuchs number 55 Audi. I kind of think that mentality here actually won't set him too wrong, will it?
Well, yeah, we heard from Fred Vivish earlier saying Bathurst is a bit like a mini Nordschleife. I mean, you think about the commitment required to go fast around the Nürburgring. It's the same sort of commitment across the top of the mountain. There's just less of it here. So for Philip Ellis to come and go, oh, this place is easy. I mean, it's only a quarter of a lap around the Nordschleife, so I can do that with my eyes closed. But that, just to our point that we were talking about earlier, Rich, about how these factory drivers can come down here, have a bit of a look around. They've probably done some laps on the sim before they jumped on the plane to fly down to Australia. And then they can just put it into action just like that. It's seriously impressive to watch.
Inside the last 20 minutes of free practice, the 6th session. We had 2 for bronze drivers only earlier in the week. And the 2023 LIQUI MOLY Bathurst 12 hours preparation, building towards our qualifying session. We'll go live to Australia as well on the TV coverage, which starts a little bit later on. Don't forget, if you're here at the track listing on 103.9 FM, we have that Red Bull F1 demonstration as well. Liam Lawson will be taking the car around. If you weren't with us earlier on, as I was coming in this morning, just as first light was breaking, drove past the most bizarre scene I've ever seen in a petrol station with the Red Bull F1 car, full set of mechanics round it, doing some videotaping some filming for some promotional work, and it's just like, and there's people walking past on the way to work going,
that happens here all the time.
It's Bathurst.
I mean, I'm sure if they asked someone nicely, someone could have gone down to the servo with some jerry cans and got some fuel for it. They probably didn't need to take the race car.
Less effect, though, isn't it? Yes. I mean, to be fair, Bathurst Regional Council let us drive an entire field of GT3 cars down to the main street for a party, so anything's possible.
Oh, that was one of the coolest things I've done, was drive the race car from here into town.
Really?
Yeah, really, really cool. Did that a couple of years ago, the Track to Town activation. It is very surreal driving your race car on the road.
Yes.
Especially roads that we drive around town a lot every time we come to town here.
So just under 17 minutes to go in this final practice session. So put yourself in the seat of an Audi. You're out here now. What are you looking for right now, knowing that qualifying's just around the corner?
So now, the last 15 minutes of the last practice session ahead of qualifying, you're really wanting to know exactly what the car balance is like heading into quali. So you want to know what your qualifying trim is. You want to know what you need to continue to fine-tune. You won't be driving at 100%. You'll be at 97, 98%. But you want to know what you'll have. The track temperature will continue to rise ahead of qualifying. So you'd expect that the track will probably lose a little bit more grip in the outright sun of the day. But you want to know where your car balance is at. And then you want to know what your strengths are versus the opposition. And if you're down in, I don't know, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, you want to know, what have I got to do to solidify my lap time, to get myself up into 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, to make sure I lock myself in to the top 10 ahead of the shootout this evening. So there's a lot of just fine-tuning right now. If you're in the first half of the field, or your second half of the field, you're understanding how much of a swing do I have to make to throw at this car to get us where we need to be.
So let's touch on qualifying, and it will take some work just to get into the Pirelli shootout this afternoon at about 4 o'clock. So if you're in the Pro-Am class or the Silver class, it takes 2 drivers to do the job. Your Pro-Am driver does a time in part 1 of qualifying. Your Pro driver does a time in the second part of qualifying. Add them together, aggregate lap time, that's your qualifying time. The Pros only run in part 2 of qualifying. So while we're still getting over the Red Bull F1 car pounding around Mount Panorama and Matt Hall doing aerobatics above it, 2 Pro drivers have to run in that 40 minutes. So you would imagine, let's say Shane Van Gisbergen goes out first, he punches out at 2:01.5. Maxi Gotts goes out second, he punches out at 2:01.5. Their combined time is whatever those 2 numbers added together are, and that is their qualifying. Sorry, Shay?
That would be a 4:03 flat.
Thank you, Shay.
Yeah, even I can do that.
I appreciate that. So it takes 2 drivers just to get into the shootout. So it's an aggregate time. Just places more of an emphasis on this team aspect of endurance racing.
Absolutely, yeah. And we see that a lot in GT racing around the world. It's quite unique for us in Australia. We don't see it anywhere other than this event. So the lap times that we'll be calling in qualifying are not necessarily with the Hollywood lap times. We're talking 4 minutes instead of 2 minutes, because it becomes so much more critical, and the margins become quite a bit bigger when you start talking about aggregates. So that'll be interesting. But then I am really looking forward to the shootout this afternoon. And it's not the one-lap shootout that we're used to here at Bathurst for the 1000. It's a 15-minute session. Have a crack, get the tyre in, and then just lean on it for a couple of laps to see what you can do.
And wasn't that an unexpected gem of last year's event?
So good last year.
Thank the terrible weather and the lack of tyre warm-up that the cars had last year for giving us a format that was brilliant.
I remember we sat down afterwards, after that session finished, go, we got to do that again.
Yes, exactly, yeah. And they listened to us, which was amazing. Yeah, it was tremendous. Right at the end, Chaz lost it at the death, at the checkered flag, with the final sector that he'll remember for a long time, I'm sure. Managed to put what is now the sports bet car on pole position and win his second Alan Simonson pole award. So when we get to that point, bottom half of the top 10 go into run first. The bottom 5 cars run for 15 minutes, and pole could come from that, potentially, given the depth of the field this year. And then the fastest 5 from qualifying combined go in. It's just one driver. It's just the hero lap time. It's same old Bathurst qualifying, hero lap on a Saturday afternoon. But it's just done a little bit differently to give these cars the opportunity to go as quickly as we want to see them go.
That's right. If we did the one-lap shootout with the GT3 car, you will not see what that car and driver combination is capable of, because it takes that little bit longer to bring the tyre into the window.
Remember, Shay, you're not going to see a 2:02.6.
No, you won't. You won't in the one-lap shootout. No. Shay was talking about the 888 Brock Feeney car going out on a new tyre run, and it felt like it was 10 minutes ago that Shay reported that in. Just now, Brock has done a 2:02.9 to get the most out of that set of tyres. So I reckon that's the 4th push lap on those tyres. So a 2:02.9 is a mega lap. That'll be the first time Brock's ever done a 2 around Bathurst. but it's taken that long to get the tyre in the window. So I think that run was an understanding run, just knowing how much it's going to take. So then they can work out in the qualifying sessions how long each run is going to take.
Yeah.
So there you go. You go. If that was the 4th lap, that's a 9-minute run effectively to get the most out of the tyre. And so you need to then work out your strategy about how long each run's going to take to make sure you maximise the qualifying session itself.
There's a bit of pre-lunch happy hour going on at the moment. This is the pre-lunch beers you go and have before you have your nice Saturday afternoon out. So Brock Feeney going quickly. Lucas Stolzer to set the personal best lap for 75 at a 2:03.17. I love a lot of these conversations, that combinations that their drivers are so closely matched. So we know that Jules Gounon can do a 3-1, probably quicker. Those two drivers, nothing between them in 75. Mattia Druetti behind the wheel of the Porsche, so of the Audi, correction. So he was going quickly, no improvement, but he's just peeled off back into pit lane. So Nicky Katzberg's got the 77 car now up into 6th position. Valentino Rossi's behind the wheel of 46. We'll keep an eye on his lap times. But as we talk, Feeney's going on with it. He's going quicker. Lucas Stoll's doing the same. And Grenier going fast as well in the 999 at the top of the leaderboard.
The ideal lap time, if you combine the fastest 3 sectors, is a 2:02.29. Into the pit lane.
So Feeney didn't finish that lap. He was on to improve that 2:02.9, but came to the lane. So with 10 minutes to go, I wonder whether that's a timing thing now to get one of the other drivers in so they can start to understand the 2-driver rule for qualifying. So Brock is obviously laid down a pretty good argument to say, hey, I can qualify this car if you need me to.
Absolutely.
So now it's up to Shane Van Gisbergen or Maxi Gotts to go out and have a run with, it'll be roughly just under 10 minutes to go at the end of the session for the 888 car. So they have sort of started to understand what they get. And it looks like Mercedes in general are running to a similar run plan. They're all having a bit of a quali sim in this last 15 minutes to understand where they are lap time wise. So you tend to see that from manufacturer to manufacturer. They all run the same sort of run plans throughout the course of the session, so that when they go back at the end of the session, they can overlay the data from each car. And it's relevant because all the times were set at the same time of the actual practice session. So it gives them cleaner, better data ahead of qualifying later this afternoon.
Going into qualifying later this afternoon, one of the cars we're going to have to keep an eye on making it into the shootout, potentially, the Super Barn Audi, number 47. Once again this weekend, Dylan O'Keefe back at the mountain, a place that you've won a couple of times now. How does it feel to be behind the wheel of an Audi, though?
Yeah, it's good to be back behind the wheel of an Audi. I've done a few races over the years, but nothing in this new model, the new Evo. It's really suited my driving style, especially over the top. It's a bit more forgiving and certainly very quick. So looking forward to reviewing the data after this session with the pros and see what they're doing. And, you know, I think we are an outside chance for the shootout. And if we make it, that's great. But if not, it's not a worry because our focus is the end game tomorrow. And if we can finish the race, I'm sure we'll be on the podium in our Silver Cup. So yeah, really looking forward to a big day tomorrow.
It's one giant Audi garage, but it's also one giant Audi family. You guys are sharing data between all the cars.
Yeah, exactly. We like to all still remain friends, so we're still sharing data and everything. It's nice. Plenty to go through. So many cars, so many drivers, but if we all work as a group, we'll try and lift the whole team.
This is such an endurance race. You've done it many times in different classes before. Coming into the silver class, what do you think is going to be your advantage with your teammates?
I think the advantage is just being consistent. You know, with my teammates, there's no egos, there's no rivalries. We're all here for the same reason. Just have fun, get to the end tomorrow. You know, look after the AM driver, make sure he's having fun. And yeah, if we can do that, we're in for a great day.
We were just observing how long it takes to get the tires up to temp today with the air being a little bit cooler. About 4 laps is when you get your peak?
Yeah, 4 onwards. So around 4 they come in, and then you generally get 3 laps after that. So it took quite a while to get the temp, and then from lap 4 onwards seems to be quite good, but you only get probably 2 or 3 cracks.
How hard is it to keep yourself reined in for those first 4 laps and not just throw it at the mountain?
I know, it's you got to stay focused because it can be a bit boring because you're not up to speed, but just try and focus on getting them tyres right, because you know once they're good, the Audi's quick around the mountain and you can make the most of it.
Good luck getting into the shootout today. I'm sure we'll chat with you tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Shay. This is the point we were talking about before, that there are a lot of cars that can make the shootout, and that car, Daniel Gaunt, one of the drivers, Andrew Fawcett, Myland team, IMS, International Motorsport, Kiwi team going well. The sister car is the 47, the Super Barn car, which has got David Russell as one of the drivers, and D-Russ was punching out low 4s and high 3s earlier today as well. So they've all got at least one driver more than capable of getting into the top 10 on outright pace. But the thing with qualifying at this race is that it takes more than one driver to get yourself into the top 10.
That's right. That team aspect of qualifying so unique. to this race. Chaz Mostert now has found himself up inside the top 10. He's currently 5th. He's gone fastest in that middle sector, so the Audi again proving to be very strong across the top of the mountain, and he's actually the fastest cumulative lap time with the first and second sector added together. But the third sector is a weak sector for Audi. He doesn't have that straight line coming down the hill at Conrod, but we can make up time on the brakes at the chase and into the final corner. And we saw, as you mentioned, Rich, Chaz's last sector last year in the pole shuffle was seriously impressive.
You picked that. I was like, how did he do that time? It was all the final sector. That massive braking as the 46 goes across the line. Richie Stanaway's just done a 2.9 in the 99 Boost mobile car from 888, so only 3/10 off the top of the time. Here's Chazzy, second.
That should have been faster. He dropped it coming onto the front straight. He dropped the wheel, so it was only 4/100ths off going fastest to the Group M car. But Chazzy should have gone faster. That should have been 2:02.4, 2:02.5. So there's more in that car yet with Chaz at the wheel, for sure.
So there's 5 cars in the 2s now. Lucas Stoll's behind the wheel of 75 for Sun Energy One Racing with a 2:03.0. So right on the cusp of getting into the 2s. The 25 cars on the timing screen, 23 are on the racetrack right now. So it's as busy as it's going to get. And of 2 cars that are missing, one of them's Mathieu Jaminet in the Porsche car, currently in 3rd position on the leaderboard. They're in the pit lane at Manthey EMA, and Jeff Taunton in the Mark Cars Australia at 111, still sitting in the lane directly below our commentary point as well. Otherwise, everyone is on the racetrack, and there's still some good lap times. Old mate of yours behind the wheel of the 777. That's the Ben Motorsport Park car he'll share with Yasser Shakin. Personal best middle sector. Christopher Meese, nice to have the Mombat.
The Mombat
back. That's his Aussie nickname.
When we say, we call him the Mombat, everyone corrects you and said, no, the terminology is Wombat. But when Measy came down to Australia the first time, he thought they were called Mombats, M-O-M-B-A-T. So hence the nickname has stuck for a very long time for Christopher Meese.
Last year was the first GT3 race at this place that he'd missed from a 12-hour point of view. You and he had a bit of a shootout a couple of years ago and some de-restricted Audis.
Yeah, that was good. That was good fun.
Yeah.
That was.
Yes, you were the first under 2 minutes, if memory serves.
No, Measy went under 2 minutes. I was 2 minutes, 0.2.
Right.
And I would never let him forget it. He got to set his lap time on a medium compound tyre. I had to set mine on a hard compound tyre. So Measy got the little tyre advantage. That was okay. That was great fun.
Yeah,
was
they
fun.
never forget, do they?
No, not cool stuff like that. Not cool stuff like that.
Brilliant.
I've still got that video on my laptop. Driving that car. It was so cool. An unrestricted GT3 car around Bathurst.
Hello.
Where did you find the difference? Where did you feel the difference most?
Oh, it was literally the straight line speed. You take the air restrictors out of it and just coming down Conrod, it was on the rev limiter at the top of the hump.
Oh, really?
It was,
man.
And we were top gear going up Mountain Straight. We were 6th gear into Skyline. It was, you're just faster everywhere. The aero works better because your airspeed over the split, under the splitter and over the wings was better. Everything was faster. It was seriously serious. I mean, if GT3 cars raced here at Bathurst, they'd be too fast for the racetrack.
Yes.
Unrestricted, they'd be too fast for the racetrack. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, globally, GT3 cars are sort of kept to a same lap times. The cars are always developed and made better and better and better, but we always sort of do the same lap time because they are restricted back to a speed, because if they were let off the leash, seriously, they would be seriously fast race cars. I mean, as race car drivers, we love that stuff, but at the end of the day, you do have to sometimes think about safety.
I was overseas when that happened. I wasn't lucky enough to be here. I was getting text messages every 5 minutes. Oh, GT's just done a low 0-0. Will they get it? Chaz Mostert just circulated around. Interesting, that lap 2:19.0. None of the sectors good. So clearly, and now he's on it. So clearly, this is a little bit of a simulation to see what a little rest lap in between a push lap is. Just to cool the tyre down a little bit and manage that tyre. And now he's pushing again, and personal best first sector for car number 65.
So personal best sector for Chaz, the 50.56, but the best actual first sector is the 50.31. So 2.5 tenths off in the first sector, and that's the run up Mountain Straight where the Audi doesn't have that straight line speed, but we have already seen from Chaz, he holds the fastest middle sector. And that's effectively from the exit of the cutting to the exit of Forest Elbow. So all the twisty stuff across the top of the mountain is where the Audi comes into its own.
Perfect. 3 minutes left in the session.
3 minutes left. You heard from race director James Taylor. His middle split wasn't purple or even green, but his cumulative lap, the overall so far, is purple. So quicker than ever. So he strung it together.
And remember, on that last lap where he set the 2:02.6, he dropped it at the last corner. So I feel like there's a couple of tenths up his sleeve there. So interesting to see. I just wonder now whether he's had that cool down lap. He's had that big push lap, a cool down lap. whether the tyre's gone away a little bit from him, given that we haven't seen a personal best in that middle sector. Could be anything. I mean, you do have to really hustle the car to get across the top of the mountain, and he does a 2:02.88.
Yeah.
So I think the tyre's gone past its best for Chaz because he wasn't even able to improve the final sector. We know that there's time there to improve when he made that mistake on the push lap.
With the improvements in the sector times, the ultimate lap time now is a 2:01.9.
Yeah.
I think we'll see ones in quali.
Yeah,
You think we will?
Maybe not quali itself, but maybe the shootout, the pole shuffle this afternoon, where it cools down a little bit. We get that happy hour situation.
High ones?
I think we'll see high ones again. I remember we were here with Rene Rast in 2016, and he was in the ones. He did a 1.8, and we had time up our sleeve, and we said, "You got another set of tyres? Do you want to throw another set of tyres out? You want to have a go, mate? You want to have a go?" And he comes back and goes, "No." That is the maximum of the car. And then I watched the video that night, and he was right.
Yes.
But actually, that's pretty cool because sometimes, as a racing driver, you've got to say that, haven't you?
Oh, I would have thrown a set of tyres up and had another crack.
Of course he would have. Of course
But
he
he
would have.
knew the limit of the car, and
Yeah.
he just said, "Nah, that's it. We will not go faster than that. I know what the limit of the car is," and probably understands the risks he took on that lap to achieve that lap time.
point.
So that's the great, cool stuff about GT3 cars in qualifying trim at the mountain. You know, if you know you've done the lap, there's no point having another go because all you're going to do is turn it into a 50-cent piece.
Lucas Stoles is going very quickly. Fastest first sector of the session so far.
That's a
Mostert,
mega first sector from Stoll.
50.03 it is. Mostert flying across the top as well.
So that throws my theory out the window that tyres past his best.
Well,
Chazzy's gone fast
He
again.
gave 6/10 away in the first split, though, compared to Luca. But they're both up. They're both still going quicker than anybody else has.
Stoltz personal best across the top of the mountain, but loses 3/10 across the top. So
the Audi.
It was 6/10 gain to the Mercedes going up the mountain, but loses 3/10 across the top of the mountain. So we talk about the BIP difference. We're on board now with Stoltz watching on the monitor, and we just see, I mean, it's easily flat through here. Just how deep does he go here into the chase? Oh, he's rolled out of it. We won't know. I wonder whether the radio call came. We don't need to show our hand
give it
just
away.
now.
That's excellent. I wonder if Mostert gets the same message. But this is the happy hour.
No, he's going to finish the lap.
Yeah.
So that was a big lift there.
It was.
This is the happy hour we were denied last night. Oh, he still goes quickest.
Faster. There is time in that car. There is time in that car.
Oh, that's
Big time.
There's a big lift before he braked there. There's a one.
We call that a BOP lift in the game.
Well, that's pertinent because Audi got whacked after qualifying last year with 5 kilos.
I went straight down to the garage and there was 2 drivers in big trouble that afternoon.
They copped the talking to. Mostert wobbled around the final sector and actually went straight to pit lane. So there was none of that from Audi. So a 2:02.43 for Lucas Stoles. The defending champs end up on top at the end of the final practice session. And that'll be the quickest lap in practice for the day. Did they go quicker than the Porsche went earlier on today? I'll check that for you in a second.
That confirms it for me, Rich.
Yeah,
there'll be ones this afternoon.
That is the quickest lap of the weekend so far.
And the ultimate time from the sectors is now down to a 2:01.68.
We'll see ones in qualifying. Maybe not in the cumulative session, but definitely in the pole shuffle.
Still a few movements. Chris Meese just punches out a 3-1 in the 777 to get himself in the 10. Good luck, Tony D'Alberto, 3-3 in the Lambo.
Yeah, they're really happy with that car, those guys. They're really, really comfortable. I do think that the Audis at the moment are very, very heavy with fuel. That tends to be their strategy in practice, to run the cars very, very heavy. And the cars do light up when you lighten the fuel load.
Alex Davids just punched out a 3-9 in the Scott Taylor Motorsport 222 car. It's a pretty handy lap. That's the only non-Evo AMG GT3 in the field. It hasn't had the upgrade that all of the other cars have had. So it's a spec behind the other cars. Good lap for Alex. They go 13th outright. But Lucas Stoles on top, John Hindhaugh.
Chazzy Mostert's last lap was a spin in front of Ridges.
Oh, okay.
Last time around. So that's why you said he'd blown the last sector, and that's why he came into the pit lane. So he was still pushing pretty hard.
They're untidy in that last sector, Chaz. So he dropped it coming onto the front straight, has a spin at the chase. We know that he has big commitment in that last sector. We saw that last year. So clearly just trying to find the limits in practice when the stakes aren't quite as high.
So from first to 17th, 1.6 seconds, which is not much at all. But then I think Aaron Cameron can jump in the car that's 18th, the 44 Valmont Racing Mercedes. He's got capability to do low 4s. Dean Fiore, Lee Holdsworth in the number 9 Hallmark Property Group car. Certainly Lee could go quicker than that. And then the 47 car you're pointing out has got David Russell up their sleeve, and we know D-Russ can do threes in a GT3
he stuck it on pole for the 12-hour in the Lamborghini.
In Roger Lago's car, correct. So there's a capability of 20 cars on raw pace.
Can be in the 10.
In the 10, on raw pace from one driver. That's not necessarily going to work when you combine two drivers to get them in, but from a depth of field point of view, it's pretty good.
This is Richard lobbying to turn the top 10 shootout into a
top 20 shootout.
Yeah. He's had that agenda for quite some time.
I think just Indy 500 qualifying, single car entire field, get a couple of laps, away they go.
Good try, Grailsy. Yeah, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it is Sun Energy One with their Mercedes that wins the final practice. The defending champs coming back into this race once again, and Lucas Stoltz has just gotten out of the car having a quick debrief with Jules Gagnon. But for Jules, this is a wonderful feeling because even though it's just practice, it's a very nice setup going into the qualifying session. So knowing that it will be he and Luca who get to combine their times because they're running in the pro class, they don't have to put Kenny in, and they are going for that pole shootout. They are going to have a very strong go at it. And Jules, for you, this is a good feeling, is it not, to know that your car is really fast and maybe even has a little bit more?
Yeah, Luca did a super lap this morning. Car looks fast. We will see this afternoon when everyone put new tires and are pushing like us. But anyway, back in the mountain is always something amazing. This place is legendary, and it's the best track in the world. It's great also to see many fans out there today. I think we are back to the normal event. And last year we had an amazing event, so we're going to try to keep the momentum.
I'll let you finish debriefing with Luca. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shea Adam down in the pit lane. And Garth Tander joining me, John Hindhaugh, and Richard Krill in the booth. Decent amount of work done there, I think, GT.
I think we're starting to now see the bit of the form guide. I don't think we've seen Audi really show their hand right now. Chaz was having a bit of a push. There's more time in that car, so that car's 2/10 off, but I think that's more than capable of doing a 2:02.4 to match Lucas Stoltz's time. We haven't seen anything really from the factory cars yet, so those cars will go faster. BMW haven't really fired a shot yet either, so we're still seeing a bit of everyone holding their hand back a little bit ahead of qualifying, just making sure they don't cop that BOP penalty ahead of the most important session of the weekend.
Everyone's learned the Audi lesson from last year. I wonder, though, with the BMWs, they have not looked once to trouble a two. Surely with that car never having been there before, and sure you keep your cards to your chest, but surely you just want an understanding of what it's theoretically capable of at some point.
They will know from the data what the car's theoretically capable of. So they, I watched that car across the top of the mountain. It's the first time I've seen GT3 cars across the top of the mountain for a long time. And the car that stood out to me was the BMW. And I think that car hooked up on a brand new tyre, light fuel, will be one of the fastest cars across the top of the mountain.
And Vincent Voss knows what he's doing for WRT. He's got two cars. If necessary, they can go slightly different ways. They get double the amount of data. I've got to remember to say it down here instead of data. You know, and different race, different personality of circuit, but at Dubai they qualified 6th and 7th. And at the end of lap 2, they were running the top 3.